Hey guys, thanks for joining the episode of Olympic Games. My name is Lance, and today I'm taking a look at a brand new game coming to Kickstarter called Colonies. This is a new game from Floodgate Games. It is a 2 to 5 player game that takes roughly 30 to 45 minutes to play, and is a competitive game, so at the end of the game, the player that has the most points will be the overall winner. So in the game itself, you are set in the stars, and you're trying to build a home on an asteroid. Now, other players are trying to do the same thing, so the players each round are going to be competing for the limited resources and buildings that are available. Based on the planning that you do and the workers that you play, each one has special abilities and will grant you certain things that will help you in your turn to try to gain resources or the different buildings. Then, as you get buildings, you're going to be placing them on your asteroid, and by planning smartly and placing them in the proper locations, they're going to maximize the amount of points that you get at the end of the game. The player that is able to do this the most effectively will be the winner at the end of the game. So my thoughts on this one, I was really excited to check out some of the new projects that Floodgate Games is working on because they've really been knocking them out of the park lately. And they teamed up with Scott Alms on this one to design this game, and for those of you that are familiar with him, he is the main designer for a lot of the Tiny Epic games as well, so if you're fans of those or you like Floodgate Games, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. It's a really interesting game, plays very quick, and the rules are very simple for this one. All of it comes down to the way you play your cards and the way you build your buildings within your asteroid to maximize the amount of points you get and to maximize your turn. So there's a lot of good strategy involved with this, and there's a number of different ways to play. The game comes with a basic mode, an advanced mode, and even some additional variants within it, and that's before we even get into stretch goals and that. So depending upon what kind of things we unlock, this game is going to have a lot of replayability and a lot of value to it. So as always, if you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys and start a conversation. Let me know what you guys think on this one as well. And of course, these are just my opinions. And if you like these videos, if you enjoy what I do, please consider that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it really makes a huge difference, helps me to continue to grow and build to produce these videos. And if you want to stay up to date on all my videos, also consider ringing the bell to get notifications anytime I release new content. So let's head to the table and I'll show you what this one's all about. Let's go ahead and start with the player boards. So each player is going to receive a player board that is going to have a quick reference guide for the points that the player can get throughout the game. And this is going to change as this is a prototype, and so this is no longer in effect. There will be a different set of images there. Then we have the area the player will store their different resources in, and they can have a maximum of 9 resources. And then finally, each player will have an asteroid where they're going to be building their colony on throughout the game. And this is going to be double-sided, with one side being the basic, in which will have a B on it, and the other side will be advanced, and will have an A on it. And as you can see, each of the sides is going to look different. And each player board is also going to be different, with a different design on it. So each player is going to have a different approach when they play their game. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to receive a bonus secret objective card, which will give the player bonus points for each building of that type that they have in their city at the end of the game. Finally, the players are going to select whether they want to play the basic or advanced game. Depending upon which they choose, they'll gather the worker deck, shuffle it up, and each player will receive 4 cards. And each worker card is going to have a number, which is the initiative of that card, so when that player will activate, and a special ability at the bottom of the card that will grant the player some sort of special ability, and the number of resources that card can pick up if the player chooses that. Now with the advanced cards, they're going to work pretty much the same way with the same kind of breakdown, but based on when the player plays it, if it is the first card they will play, then the top ability is going to be active, and if it is the second card they play, then the bottom ability will be active, representing the day and night cycle. The game board itself is double-sided with a 2-3 player side and a 4 and 5 player side that will add additional spaces for buildings. Depending upon which side the players choose, each of the sides is going to have an area for all the different resources the players can gather and the maximum number of resources of each type that can be there. And then there's going to be a limited amount of buildings that the players will have access to each round of the game, and each building is going to have a cost and resources on the side of that building. And the game will be played itself over 8 rounds. So the players will have 8 rounds in order to build up their city on their asteroid. Each round in Cosmic Colonies is broken down into 2 phases, the action phase and the refresh phase. The first phase we're going to look at is the action phase, and during the action phase, each player is going to look at their hand of 4 worker cards and choose one of them that they want to play face down. So each player will go through their hands and take a look at the cards they have to decide which card they want to play, either to gather resources or to potentially build a building. So let's take a look at an example of this. We'll say that our player here chose that card and placed it face down in front of them. Now, once all players have a card face down in front of them, then the players are going to simultaneously reveal those cards. And then based on the card number, starting with the lowest card number and proceeding, working your way up through the numbers, each player is going to activate and take their turn. During a player's turn, there's two different actions that they can do. They can either gather resources that are listed on the card by choosing resources that they want to gather. So for this example, the electrical engineer is going to provide a player with 3 resources that they can gather from one of the supplies. So the player would choose one of the supplies and gain 3 or as many resources as they can if there's less than 3 in that supply. Now, the other option the player has is spending resources that they have to buy a building and place it in their colony. Currently, we do not have enough to buy a building, so let's go ahead and start off by gathering. So with our electrical engineer here, before the action, he can collect 1 yellow energy. From there, then he can choose his action to do. So again, we could either gain resources or we could build a building. Now that we have that collection based from that special ability, we do have enough resources that we could purchase a building. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll spend our 2 yellows and a purple to build this building, as that is the requirements of that. Once we have a building, then we can place it anywhere on our map to start off with, but once a building is placed, then we have to place another building on one of the flat edges of it, connecting the buildings together. And by placing a building, you want to place it so that you cover up all the different types of terrain pieces on there, as at the end of the game, the more of these that are visible, the less points you're going to receive. Starting with this one being the nastiest, and then we have this, and finally that one. So let's go ahead and start off by placing our building there, and then in subsequent turns, when we purchase buildings, we have to place them connecting to this building, unless a card or ability lets us do it otherwise. Now, once all of the players have resolved the first action card, then the players will go through a second action phase where they're going to choose a second action card that they want to play, and again, they'll look through them and choose one that they want to play face down. Again, the players will reveal those cards, and again, starting with the initiative number, each player is going to take their turn doing their actions. Once all the players are done with that, then we'll move into the refresh phase. And during the refresh phase, you're going to resupply all of the buildings that have been used with new buildings of that type. You'll add resources back to the resource areas based on the number of players. So with us playing a 3-player game, we'd add 3 resources to each area or up to the maximum that each area can hold. Finally, you'll advance the turn marker, and then each player's cards that they played are going to be handed to the player to their left, rotating those cards around. That way, then each player is going to have 2 new cards that they can work with each round and 2 cards that they know that their opponent used. And so in this way, you're going to have to strategize on which cards are going to be beneficial to you, but may not be as beneficial to your opponents. So really kind of balancing out when to use the proper cards. Finally, after the players have completed 8 rounds of the game, they'll move into a final scoring step where each player is going to receive points, and the player that has the most points will be the winner. So first off, each player is going to look through their board, and based on their secret objective card, the number of buildings that match the top section, they'll receive 2 bonus points for. So we have 1, 2, 3, so we'll receive 6 points for that, and the second building, we have 2 in there, so we'll receive 1 point for that, for each of those. So we have a total of 8 points for those buildings. Then each player is going to receive 15 bonus points for each full set of the 5 buildings that are in their colony. So our player has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 different types of main buildings. So he receives 15 points for that. Then, as you can see on this chart here, we're going to look on our board, and based on the exposed resources that are on there, we're going to get a certain amount of points. The more of each type of resource, the less points we're going to receive. So it's important to try to cover up as much as you can. So first off, the very first one are these red areas. If we have none of those exposed, which our player doesn't, we'll receive 15 points. And for each one that is exposed, we're going to lose 3 points of that. So if, for example, we would have had this showing, then we would have only received 12 points. From there, then we'll move on to the second section, which is the number of our other resource that's exposed. So we do have 2 of those exposed, so we're only going to get 6 points for that instead of the full 10. Finally, we have the crystals, and again, based on the number of those, we'll receive points. So we only have one exposed, so we'll pick up 4 points for that. The dirt spaces will not count as any additional points in the basic game, but if you're playing the advanced game, for each dirt space that's exposed, you'll also receive 1 bonus point. From there, the player that has the most points will be the winner. The last thing I want to show you is a round in action. And again, with this one, all of the materials I'm using with this are prototypes and are subject to change, and some of the stuff has changed already. So moving into the game itself, each round is going to consist of 2 phases. The action phase, which will be done twice, and then the refresh phase. And then from there, then the players will start a new round until the 8th round, in which case then they'll move into scoring. So for this, again, each player is going to have a secret objective, and for this video I'm going to reveal these so you know what the players are kind of going after. Again, these are just bonus points, so the players don't have to go after these, or always go after these. From there, then, we're going to go ahead and move into the action phase during the round, so each player is going to play 1 card face down secretly. Once all the players have a card face down, then all players are going to simultaneously reveal their cards, and then starting with the player that played the lowest number and working your way up to the highest number. So our player over here played the Mining Engineer, so with this one it has a special power. It says if you place a tile, purple is going to be considered wild. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 1 purple, and we're going to use the blue and the green to match this tile here. So normally we need 2 blue and a green, but the purple are wild. So we'll use that and be able to purchase this. And then we're going to place it on our tile somewhere. So let's place it down here. Then moving on to our next player over here with a 4. So it says before your action, collect a yellow. So he'll do that. And then he is going to, for his action, you can again either purchase a tile or you can gain resources up to the value on the card. So we're going to go ahead and gain resources. He'll gain the green. So he'll get 3 of those. And then we'll move on to the next player. So our player over here is the Hydra Engineer. So if you collect resources and there is not enough blue, you may gain that from general supply. So he gains 4 and there is enough, so he'll gain all of the blue. And then finally our player over here has the collector bots. So with this one you may collect resources as your action, or you must, and then collecting from a location with the most resources. If there's multiples, then you get to choose. So we do have only 1 location, so we have to gain the purple that has the most. From there, then our players will go through a second action phase where each of them will play a card secretly face down. And then again, when all of our players have a card, they're going to go ahead and reveal them simultaneously. And our player over here started with the lowest one, so they have the Architect. So this one says you can place a tile and it may be placed diagonally adjacent. So with that player, their biggest, or their one that they're going to get the most points for is the squares, and they do have the requirements, so let's go ahead and build one of those. So we'll spend that and gain a square. Now, normally you can place it anywhere, rotating it, but it has to be placed within the grid, and it has to be placed next to another building unless this is the first one. So as this is our first building, we can place it anywhere on the grid. And you want to cover up all the different resources that are out there if you're able to. So that is it for that player. And moving on to our next player here, they have the Artist. So it says before your action, you get to place a single square on your map. So we have the single square tile. And so let's place it over here in the corner to block that one up since there's nothing else we can place there. And then we'll take our action. So again, we can either gain resources or build, which we have to gain resources. So let's go ahead and gain 2 green. We only have 1 there, so let's gain the 2 yellow. Moving on to our next player over here, the Banker. He can, if he places a tile, he can spend 1 less resource. So let's go ahead and do that. We will build one of the long ones there. And so let's spend 2 blue. And then the last resource we'll use with the Banker's ability so we don't have to spend it. So then we'll place. And let's do that back there. The Expediter. So with this one, it says if you place a tile, you may place a second tile, and you have to pay for both. So our player here has got plenty of resources, so let's go ahead and do that. And they have those, so we'll do that first and purchase one of those. So we have 2 green and a yellow. And let's place that here, and then our player over there purchased that long one, otherwise we would have been able to do that second action. But since we don't have the resources that are needed, there's nothing we can do with that. So at this point, then all of our players have had their second action, so we're going to move into the refresh phase. And during that, you're going to refresh all of the resources by adding 4, 1 for each of the players, onto that resource up to the maximum. And in a 4 or 5 player game, there's a max of 7. So each of these areas will get 4 resources added to it. Then all of the areas that the buildings were taken from will get replenished. The marker will move up 1 space, and then finally each player is going to pass the 2 cards that they used to the player on their left. So in this way, you're also going to have to strategize about what cards you use, as your opponent is going to have access to those the next round. So from there, now our players will go ahead and move into the next round, and this will continue until the 8th round, in which case, at that point, then the players will enter into a scoring step where each player will score points based on their tile placement and different things such as the secret bonuses and that kind of stuff. So I hope you found this video helpful in deciding whether or not you want to back this Kickstarter. Like I said, I would definitely recommend it, especially if you like competitive games, tile placement games, and resource management games, as this one does a really good job with that, with a very simplistic rule set, but plenty of complexity within the strategy. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them, or swing by the Kickstarter's main page and drop any questions you have there as well. I'm sure the creators would love to hear from you guys. And if you found this video helpful, if you like what I do, please consider that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it really does make a big difference, helps me to continue to grow and produce these videos. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it, and I take into account everything you guys say to make the best possible videos. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.